So good morning, everybody, for another session in our live streaming tours. Today we are in Jaffa, and we're standing here with Rinat Milo from the Conservation Department of Tel Aviv. She's actually the chief in charge of the south of Tel Aviv and Jaffa. And it was very important for us to also include Jaffa in the conservation that we're doing, because it's not only the UNESCO Declaration of the White City that is important. We have another guest with us. But also the conservation of Tel Aviv at large. This is actually the largest building we're facing today, and we're going to start by introducing the setting. Please, Rinat.
Hi, everybody. So, as Sharon said, I'm an architect. I'm a conservation architect working for the municipality and in charge of Jaffa and the south of Tel Aviv conservation. And I want you to imagine for a minute, we are 150 years ago, and we are now standing in the middle of an orchard. So this is what used to be here more than 200 and 150 years ago, like fields and orchards and groves, and the land here was very fertile. Filled with water that were sprung out of the ground and used to water the orchards. And the surroundings are filled with what's called well houses. And this is what was here. So we have to the west, we have Old Jaffa.
And this is
the
actually,
fortified city.
Yes, Tel Aviv. Before Tel Aviv was founded, it was Jaffa. No?
Yeah, only Jaffa and the port of Jaffa. And people coming to Israel were mostly Christians and pilgrims coming to Jerusalem. So the city was fortified. There were hardly any settlements outside of the old city. And so the land was, as I said, was filled with orange groves. And slowly, slowly, the land began to be developed by the landowners, the Effendi, and they built their houses around these well houses.
The Jaffa oranges, you might know them. You can still get them in supermarkets everywhere.
Yeah, so this is like this is the logo, but it's not existing anymore, because you see here we have a city.
Yes.
So at the end of the 19th century, people started building outside of the fortified city, because it was safer to build outside, to live outside. And the well houses were very big, very palace-like. And the boulevard, and after a few years, like in 1915, Hassan Bek, the governor of Israel, of the Ottoman Empire, decided to pave the Jerusalem Boulevard, which is to the west, between Old Jaffa and us. There's a big boulevard, and this boulevard was in the for Jamal Pasha, the big sheikh of the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, and so this is to the west. And to the east, we have the American colony in 1866. People coming from America, a small group of Christians coming from America decided to settle here. After about a year, they realized they cannot live here. They started dying and of all sorts of diseases, and they left and sold all the grounds and all the lands to the Templars. So we have the German American colony to the east. To the south, we have a very big road called Salome Road, leading up to Salome village, which was a big Arab settlement in those days. And to the north, we have Derech Eilat, the road leading, it was called Nablus Road, leading up to Nablus. So this is where we are. And this area only began to be developed in the 20s. Like after the British Mandate started, there was a need for more places to live. So this is the time this area was developed. And it was mainly developed for the British Mandate officers. So as you can see, this big building used to inhabit offices of the British Mandate, and then afterwards the IDF, yes. The IDF people.
And can you just, I think maybe it's interesting to mention the style of the Templar American settlement and the old Arab settlement if we compare it to what was built here.
Yeah.
So can you just tell us just a few sentences about the styles in Jaffa?
So yeah, of course. Well, the styles are varied from all the Arab style, which was a local masonry stone and arches, and this is like what's the construction people use. This was the technology available, but when the port was developed, a lot of commodities started to being imported into the city, and so the technology evolved. And also the empire, the Ottoman Empire allowed for all sorts of other styles to come here. So it began to be more eclectic. So the eclectic style, bringing from north, from south and east into one building. This building, which is an eclectic style, which is more of the 20th century, the beginning of the 20th century. And this building, which is an Art Deco, it's like in between the modernism and and the eclectic, but I mean, it's an evolution.
Yes, I think it's nice to see the detail of this sort of Art Deco in the entrances.
Yeah. So if you have to realize this building was built according to a very old master plan that allowed for this kind of big masses. It's to be built. It's more in a European style. It's more if you look at it, it's not. If you saw yesterday buildings in the middle of Tel Aviv, they're smaller. They have a setback to the street. They have gardens around it. No, this style is on the street with no building lines. It's a very big mass. The master plan, it's called Biafo. It has trimmed corners, so you can see they are facing the street.
Round.
Sometimes in the round manner and sometimes in a trimmed manner, and you can see that the Art Deco is very stressed here. You can see the pillars rising up, and you can see the photos with the artistic and geometrical signs around it. This building is such a big mass that it accommodates the whole parcel, and it's surrounded by streets. It's one big mass of 3 floors. There is another setback floor, which is not original, and it has an internal yard.
And it has a lot of entrances. No, not
yeah.
See the other entrance.
Yeah.
I think it's important to say that if we saw yesterday that all the modernism style in the heart of the city is quite horizontal, this Art Deco style is more vertical. The lines go up rather than go to the horizontal lines following the streets. So I think this is very interesting to see. But I also really like the sort of little shops that you can see here. There's a commercial sort of soccer. So the ground floor is commercial, and you can really sense the community by looking at, here's a pottery store and a jewelry store, like all handmade things. Maybe, Shell, we can look at the entrance, Shell? So if we go inside now, we can also sense how the building looks like, and like what Rinat says, the internal courtyard. You want to show it to us?
I just want to explain for a minute about what's going on in these streets, because this area along the years between the establishment of the land of Israel, the country of Israel, and the 90s was deteriorated. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing here, no living the living was in very low standards. But in the 90s, there was a surge of people coming to Israel, from Russia especially, and there was a very great need for living. And so this area was rehabilitated as part of the Tel Aviv municipality's
so
agenda.
They brought immigrants to live here?
Not necessarily immigrants, but they allowed for more buildings here. And they began these kind of new master plans, which rehabilitated this area, which gave more land rights, which listed buildings like this building and the other building we'll see later on. These two buildings were listed in the plan of the late 90s. And so people like what you mentioned before, the artists and the jewelry and boutiques, they started coming here. Yeah. And so that they are like the first gentrifiers of this area. Yeah. So now this place is very chic, very expensive. But you see,
well, it's still not as expensive as
run
the
down.
Heart of the city. Yes, but you can see it's being gentrified.
Yeah.
Maybe I also want to show, like, the details are just amazing. Really, this terrazzo that runs up all the way, like casted terrazzo from the ground all the way to the pillars, and this sort of green color, which is used here, I think is it's very unique.
It's very unique, and but it's common for more Arab style buildings. And it's inside with the stairs, and you can see the painted walls. Painted walls, to call on the walls.
And then of course down later, right?
Yeah, the courtyard, they are having some sorts of building here, so we cannot go actually inside, but you can see the details of the stairs from the outside, like how it's all the way up. Yeah. So it's like the international style, but it's an Art Deco, because it's decorated, right, in a geometrical
lines. It's ventilated, which is nice.
Yeah,
like the stair
here
with this which is already the modernistic kind of style that it was.
Yeah,
exactly. And also steel and concrete, and then the silica stone is in the middle.
Yeah, and so you can see also the way of living. You have outside.
Difficult.
So you can see like here there are balconies which are open, and some of them have been closed over the years. But I have to stress that when we rehabilitate this kind of buildings, we open them up.
Yes, you have to open them up.
Yeah.
So now we're facing the side, the other corner of the building. And here really, is it the same rounded corner? Let's see.
The same. It's all the same. It's very symmetrical. And it's facing the corners in a rectangle, as you can see.
Yes, and I also really like to see the sort of the living environment inside of these buildings. Like you see on the top floor, all the laundry is outside,
yeah,
or the surfing board, and all the ACs, the graffiti which is done here. I think it's all really much speaking the language of the area, which is just. As I said before coming back to be a living area, it was for a long period commercial and industrial area. So this is like if you can see the other buildings here, they're more industrial. There's another entrance which is more like intimate. The portico is very nice to see, and of course here also, I don't know what it is, a coffee shop or a plant shop, which is kind of unique to this sort of vibe here in the area.
So you can see the rounded balconies, the round supporting the corners, and in the main facade you can see the rectangle balconies, which are very unique.
Yes. So let's go to the next building. Okay. The next building we have is just in the opposite corner of this one.
Yes, well, this building is more characteristic of the international style, but it's the international style of Jaffa, because it's facing the streets. It's on we call it zero line street, like no setbacks. It has windows which are long. The proportion is long and not, as you said, it's not vertical, it's horizontal. It has these kind of balconies which are on the streets, and we call this Erkel, this portion of the building which is
coming to the front.
Yeah. So and it's a very, very simple building. It's been built in the same year. It's 1934, both buildings, but I think this owner was less important or less rich or less, this building was like Sgula 8 was built by Ibrahim Hajar, which is a very famous Arab architect, and this building we don't even know.
He actually studied at AEA, I just read. So he was studying in London, and afterwards he was building also in Haifa.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to see all this sort of international style, which is really a fusion of so many places, and then found a sort of different language here in Jaffa. I also want to state in this building, which is, I think, very nice to see, is that the commercial floor is much higher than the second one. And also it has like these top windows, which bring light in.
This is the windows for the gallery. Most of the commercial floors used to have, and some of them still do, have gallery floors, which are for storage and for the other facilities of the shops. And some of it still have, as you can see, some of it still have the shutters, like these,
the original shutters.
Yeah.
Maybe we go to next to the entrance to see if we can peek into the entrance hall. I maybe see that what is quite not typical is that sort of the plaster makes a curve and rounds up in order to show the entrance in a very sort of soft way.
Yeah, but you can still see it's a much simpler building.
Yes.
And this building also has an internal courtyard, but it's much smaller. And you cannot go inside. It's closed. It has two stairways here and here.
And the original gate, you think?
Yeah, it is.
So this is the detail of the original.
Yeah, it's a special. Work. Yeah, it's special steel work. You see these parts which are melted together. It's in the old style of iron works. And you can see the above these also are original. And well, this is pretty much it. This building is actually going to be rebuilt, like 2.5 floors on top of it. So it's very interesting for the competition to have like look at it, because you need to stay objective.
Yeah. But I think also interesting for me is that usually in Tel Aviv, we don't see beams holding the balconies, no? Like the beams are inside.
So as I said, this building has like building rights. It has 2.5 more floors, and the other one, I have to say, it's without any rights. So this competition is like an experiment,
right,
of what would it be if we would add.
Yes. So this is under a strict law of conservation.
Yeah. Yeah. All the building rights were transferred to another tower in
TDR, transfer of building rights.
Yeah.
So Rinat, just in order to close this interesting session we had with you, like, is there anything that you have learned from working in the conservation department for so many years, like dealing with building additions, or how would you want to approach a building extension without, influencing too much on the participants, letting them be objective? But what would be the first thing you would want to see in this sort of area? What is important for you in these buildings particularly?
Well, I would say try to stay objective, try to look at the building itself, and not copy anything from other buildings. Like, just look at the features of the actual building in front of you and imagine an avant-garde. I would like to see here something very avant-garde, not like copy-paste maybe, because we have an example of copy-paste over there, which is quite nice. It's actually interesting, but it would be interesting to see something like we haven't thought about before, right? Because we've seen everything.
Okay, so here we are. This should be an inspiration for all the participants. Thank you very much, Rinat, for your time.
You're welcome.
And we hope to see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.